So, Emma, what's our topic for today?
We're talking about pregnancy. I would just like to clarify, we're not doing how to get pregnant, we're just doing the experience of pregnancy.
This episode is called Stretch Marks. Welcome back to the Pillow Fort. The baby is asleep. Shh. Sit with us as we share our parenting experiences. It's your favourite podcraft. It's returned. We're a podcast crafted by parents exploring life as a parent with babies and toddlers. Although we've got lots of listeners that have older children or don't fall into any of those categories. So that's fine. You're welcome to. Come and unwind to a mix of quirky humour and honest conversation with plenty of 90s throwbacks and a little bit of crafting.
Yeah, just a tad.
Yeah? Do you think that kind of sums up everything we do?
Yeah, pretty good.
Cool. There you go. That's what we are. I'm Elliot. I'm the one who's not good with pain and is very squeamish. And with me is my wife, Emma.
Who is very good with pain and not at all squeamish.
Yeah. I thought this was appropriate given we're going to be talking about
It's
pregnancy
true.
and kind of leading to giving birth.
Yeah, true. It's really lucky this is the way it worked out for us.
Yeah.
And then if Elliot was the woman, I don't know if he would cope.
Definitely. I hate like needles and stuff and injections. And I'm sure we'll get into some stories.
I was going to say, I could already think of stories, but I'm going to go on a tangent and it's just going to go off.
Whereas you're very, very good. You don't mind.
No.
Don't mind a sight of blood.
No.
Mine's more like a mental thing.
Yours is,
if people are telling a gory story or something. Or even just...
He's actually fine with the injection. It's thinking about the injection that I think sets you off.
I get very faint and have to sit down rather quickly, get some fresh air.
Whereas I'm just like, stab me.
Yeah.
All right, okay, great.
There you go. That's a bit about us, insight into our who we are as two different people. It's parenting achievement time. Do you like my little... Oh.
That worked really well.
Yeah, it worked great. So smooth, great transition. I didn't practice it at all. I just thought, I'll try and play something. I thought we wouldn't get as professional as actually having an actual
put it in
sound
afterwards.
Effect. Yeah, I thought I'd just,
play a
little thing on my phone.
Yeah, that works. I think you can see my face being like, this is messy. But okay, let's go with it.
You can see the professionalism has upped so much with Series 2.
Yeah. If you look at, you obviously can't, but half our room is currently, got tons of stuff that we've just moved out of the way so we can record.
We've not improved our space at all. Nothing's changed.
No.
We're just rambling on. Anyway, what I was trying to do and say was it's time to share a parenting achievement, which is, before we get into our theme, we like to just chat about some of the things that have gone wrong, a parenting fail, a story, or just, those moments that we can all relate to as parents. I thought initially to kick us off, considering the topic of what we're talking about today, the topic of the topic.
The topic of the topic.
I thought a common parenting achievement, which will probably be very familiar to a lot of people, is now that we have a toddler who's almost 2.5.
Yeah.
We are inundated with people going, when are you going to have your next child? Are you pregnant yet? What's going on?
What are you doing?
You having another child? Those awkward, lovely conversations. I really look forward to it. What do you make of it?
I'll be honest, not many people outside of family ask.
Okay.
So I don't know if they think I'd be more offended. So I don't really...
That's interesting. Do you think they ask me more because they think it's less acceptable to ask you?
But I also think they assume it's the man who's the one putting it off. I think most people are like, oh yeah, the woman definitely wants, another one right now. Whereas they think, the man's maybe a bit hesitant. So maybe they're trying to persuade you. Whereas with me, I feel like it's only family whoever asks that.
Interesting. It's not like we live in an old-fashioned society at all, is it? I mean,
I was like, I've never had even an acquaintance ask me. I've only ever had family. And admittedly, still a little bit annoying, but I mean, they're families.
But it's just a bit awkward. And I always feel like I get a bit frustrated when people ask, because I'm always tempted to be like, that's a really rude question.
Yeah.
I'm not answering you. Instead, I just go, yeah, we're thinking about it. Like, probably doesn't help that we've been open before that we want multiple children.
Yeah. Two.
Yes.
That's that. Unless I end up with twins, that's the cutoff point.
That's true.
I know some people happy with 3 or 4. Not me. God willing, once we're pregnant again and have another child, that's it. No more asking.
Finished.
Done.
I'm with you on this. 1 child is a lot of work. I'm not looking forward to going back to the beginning. But the other little parenting story and achievement I thought you might like to share was a recent one where you had a fun time with our toddler in Primark.
Oh, I would say traumatic. Traumatic time. So other people, and they definitely will have all gone through this before. So me and Lily were in Primark. It's one of her favourite shops. So anyway, I was like, okay, Lily, we're not shopping for us today. We're shopping for Baba. So we went to the men's section and like we were looking, we got distracted. There was like some Christmas ornaments and things. And I was like, okay, this is nice. Like she was wandering along and like she'd run off and grab something and bring it back. I was like, okay, sweetie. And then I saw her run off and I was like, okay, are you going to bring something? And she was like, uh-huh. And then I turned around and she was gone. And my heart was like dropped.
Oh.
And I kept being like, okay, it's fine, calm down. She can't have got past you. And she wouldn't go up an escalator. And I knew she was like probably in this corner somewhere. Problem was, I kept shouting her name and she wasn't answering. And my panic levels were going like through the ceiling.
Those who don't like know us very well, Lily is a very clingy child.
Very clingy.
Has never run off before.
Has never happened
Normally
before.
won't be put down.
No. So I was like, Lily, come on, this isn't funny now. And I obviously that thing comes to my mind, like, oh my God, someone's taken her. I'm going to have to stop, shut down. So this lovely old couple, like, how old is your daughter? I was like, oh, she's 2, almost 2.5. And they're like, okay, we'll help. I was like, okay, I'm going to get member staff soon. But I kept telling myself, it's fine. You know she's in this corner of the shop. She couldn't have got... And I know practically she couldn't have got past me because literally I knew which way she ran and there's no exit that way. But in your panic state, you think of 100 things that could have happened. So I was then, at this point, it felt like forever. It'd probably been like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I was like on the point of tears going, Lily. I went round this corner... And I saw her like a ninja, flat against a door, like a staff doorway, smiling her head off. That her mother was screaming her name, terrified that she'd gone missing.
She thought you were playing hide and seek.
She thought this was the best game ever. I was furious, but then I was so relieved I'd found her, I couldn't even bear to tell her off.
Yeah.
I just picked her up and carried her around the rest stop. I told the lovely old couple I found her, and they were so relieved for me. And she was... great, really happy. Yeah. But I put the fear of God into me. Now when we go in Primark, I'm going to be like, you're going in a pushchair or you're holding my hand. I'm not having this happen again.
You don't really think about the things until they happen, do you?
No.
Like now we're like, maybe we should put on reins. Maybe we should get a tracker. Like,
I'm definitely going to get a tracker. Yeah. Modern age. So then I can be like, boop, she's definitely in the shop. Whereas, I was just like, someone's taken her. They've already gone. I should have shut down the shop already.
Bidding achievement unlocked. You lost your child in the shop.
I didn't even think, what's Elliot going to think if I come back without a child? I was just like, God, I gotta find her.
Just come home. I've got the shopping. We lost the child.
We lost Lily.
Stay tuned till the end of this episode where we'll share some parenting stories and achievements from some of our listeners that have been sent in. Right, grab some more baby clothes from the shop and let's get started with our topic for today. Pregnancy. Yeah. One of the things I did want to cover though, kind of going chronologically, is multivitamins and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and I suppose that's often, you think of it as during pregnancy, but one of the things that really caught me by surprise was that you kind of need to be taking those before you're pregnant.
Yeah.
So the whole process kicks off. Like, you kind of need to be prepared and know what you're doing.
Yeah. And like, ideally, you should be taking them definitely before.
Yeah, what is it? Folic acid?
Folic acid, yeah. See how much you've learned. You used to know nothing.
Well, I'm a modern man.
You are. And I think they said like vitamin D is also very important. So it normally has that with your vitamin you're taking.
But we were very surprised that, having our first child, they don't really tell you this very well, in that they kind of, you get pregnant and then they're like, oh, are you already taking these vitamins?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, but you didn't tell me about that.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I am. But if I didn't know, I wouldn't have.
No.
If I wasn't prepared, I wouldn't have known that. So I think because I had an initial phone call and we knew what we were doing, but I have a lot of sisters who had children, so I knew we would take these things as soon as you start trying. And I just kept being like, if I was this was an accident and I hadn't known what I was doing, they didn't tell me till I saw them in person. So the phone call I had with them before, they didn't tell me, and they should have really said at that point, if you're not taking vitamins, take them now, because it's still really important.
But then part of my mind thinks, it can't be that important because, like you say, people have accidents and all sorts. People don't find out until a lot later. People don't know they're pregnant.
I think it's
and that's gone. It's
I think if you've got a good diet, you're probably fine.
Yeah,
it's just
true.
I think there's things like spina bifida and stuff that the baby can develop because of a lack of these things. So despite what Elliot says, it's still really important to take your vitamins, everybody.
Yeah. But I'm trying to not shame people for if they didn't do it or whatever.
Yeah, but also if you didn't know, it's not your fault.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like a theme for me during pregnancy, we'll talk a lot about you because it affects you most obviously. Yeah. For me, it was just a huge learning curve.
Yeah.
9 months of preparing and just learning, and I had no clue what was going on.
It's true.
And you had a lot more idea with a big family some of which already had children. But there's still so much that... Okay, so moving forward, we're you're trying for a baby, you're taking your multivitamins. Next step chronologically, about finding out that you're pregnant.
Yeah.
So, it'd be interesting to hear people's stories about this, whether it was
this is a complete... Well, to do with this, but a side note.
Yeah.
There's a huge thing where people say they found out in, bathrooms, in, supermarkets.
Right.
Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, I might be pregnant. Oh, I need to go to the supermarket and get it. But then they just do it straight away.
So this was my point, really, was how people deal with it in different ways. For some people, it's a really big deal. And for some people, they're quite happy in a supermarket bathroom to find out. I
was just I don't think I'd do it in a supermarket bathroom. Mainly because I don't think I would be there first thing in the morning, which is when you're meant to test.
I had no clue about this, so I would be convinced from watching TV and stuff that you could take a pregnancy test anytime you like. I think
if you're far enough along and it's a very expensive pregnancy test, yes, you'd be fine. Okay. But they recommend first wee of the morning. So I always thought, well, I wouldn't do that at the supermarket because it wouldn't be my first wee of the morning.
These women must be going to the supermarket very early.
Yeah. Or they, they're further along and they spend more money than I do on pregnancy tests. But I always thought that was kind of weird. But it was a TikTok and loads of people in the comments were like, oh yeah, I found it in Morrison's. And I was like, that's so weird to me. That's where you found out.
Yeah, interesting. Do you want to share how we found out? I'm trying to, I don't have a vivid memory of it.
Regular. We knew we were trying and my period was kind of late. I was quite good though. I really held off for 2 weeks because I was I'd had before that, because we've been trying, I would try quite early and then I'd be disappointed. So I was just right, I'm going to wait till I'm actually definitely late so I don't disappoint myself.
Yeah.
And put it off.
Good tip there.
Yeah. Unless you're impatient and then you can't help it.
Well, that's a word I would use to describe you, impatient.
I am, but this I was really patient with because I was I don't want to get a false negative if it hasn't had enough hormones yet. And so I was right, I'll wait the 2 weeks to make sure, then it's definitely no's.
So already from you telling this story, we're very scientific about it.
Very scientific.
We're very just well, it's, a practical kind of thing. Whereas I know some people will find it almost like a spiritual, more kind of...
Oh, yeah, definitely.
This is a glowing moment, to share, I'm going to find out I'm pregnant. I don't know, maybe...
Yeah, I think it's very similar thing to people go, oh, when you pick your wedding dress, you'll know.
Yeah.
And for me, I was very I will pick what wedding dress suits me. For me, it wasn't particularly an emotional thing. I loved my dress, but I wasn't this is going to be a life-changing decision.
That's the word I was searching for, an emotional kind of moment.
Whereas I think I was thrilled, but I also at that point kind of knew I probably was.
Yeah.
Because I had waited the 2 weeks and I was very, like, you know.
Yeah. So the funny bit about this story is I'm pretty sure at the time you were on the phone to your sister.
Becky.
And therefore she found out that you were pregnant before I did.
Yeah. This is my sister Becky. What was I calling her? Like the fertility guru.
Because she'd already had
She'd already...
2 children by that.
No, she was pregnant with her second one.
Yeah.
And because a lot of women will know, the tests can be quite faint at first. And you almost look at it like, oh, is that actually a line? Like, I'm not really sure. And I remember I was on the phone to her and I was like, right, I'm going to send you a picture. This looks positive to me.
Yeah.
Do you think this looks positive?
Also, you're highlighting again how cheap we are in that it wasn't an electronic one that tells you, yes, you are pregnant.
No,
it was like a little line.
It was a really cheap one that you get like a pack of 100 or something, and it's like a little bit of paper, and you wee on it, and you get another line. Which I would say, if you're trying, is probably the way to go because you'll spend a lot of money on pregnancy tests.
That's true. Yeah.
If not, so I sent a picture to her, and she was like, yeah, that's definitely a line. I definitely think I'm pregnant. So yes, my sister did know before Elliot.
And again, I wasn't that bothered by that because again, I wasn't fussed about it being like a big special moment.
My thing was more, I didn't want to like wake up. We need to go to the supermarket, get a proper clear blue test. Yeah. Bring it back and then do it.
Yeah.
Because I was like, that'll be really disappointing if then I drag him out, we get a thing and it's not positive and I've like made all this fuss. So I was like, I would prefer to work out if this is positive.
So I think you came in and told me while I was still in bed or something.
So like he was half asleep probably.
Yeah, I remember only really half registering
and
it,
I was like,
just being
Elliot.
Great. Okay, you're pregnant. Sure.
Yeah, it was like,
just
great.
Roll back over.
And I was just like, we're going to have to get another test because this is a cheap test and I want a proper test just to make sure.
Who's the we?
Like me and you.
Oh, okay. Right.
Decided to tell people like at the 3 months mark.
Yeah, what's that, the first scan?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've touched on it a little bit before on the podcast.
Yeah.
In our episode about COVID, we touched quite heavily on kind of our pregnancy experience.
And I know in the olden days, I think that's what they recommended. Now they say tell whoever you'd kind of want to lean on if something happened.
Yeah, that's true.
Which I do get, but my problem is my family is very excitable.
Yes.
And I do not know if it would just stay within the family.
Yeah. It's it depends on the people you're telling, doesn't it? It's whether, like, our rationale was always, well, if we tell the whole world, we then have to also tell the whole world if we lost a baby.
Yeah, and I think that would almost be harder.
I can see the rationale behind if you don't tell anyone.
Yeah, you're left alone.
You're going through that alone, and actually you might want to tell some close people who would support you if that were to happen. And we've not been through that, so we're not going to touch on, losing a child or whatnot. We've got family and friends who have been through that experience and know it's very tough.
And I think one of my sisters went through it very late, and that's why most of my family are very coy about telling people because we realised how far she got and how much worse it was, kind of that she then had to tell, just local people that really it's kind of none of their business.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? I think that is a theme you see is often people with first-time babies who are very excited often go and tell everyone straight away, and those that might have struggled getting pregnant or maybe lost or had a miscarriage or in the family like you have had people experience that are maybe a bit more hesitant.
Which I think is fair, but everybody
deal with it in
your own way. Some people I'd be happy for them all to know, because I know you should normalize it.
That's a good point.
Which I do agree with.
Again, we're getting into this topic where I feel like we should have someone with us
who knows,
who can guide us and tell us what is useful and what's not. But yeah, so very interesting. It'd be interesting, a bit more serious, but an interesting topic to cover.
But like, we never did the Facebook announcement, which I think a lot of people do.
Kept it very private. So along with not telling people that we were pregnant, the other thing we were very coy about was a due date.
Yes.
I can't, I don't know about your rationale. My rationale was just that it's just very inaccurate.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And we didn't want the pressure later on of people constantly being like, is the baby here yet?
Yeah.
How's it going?
Especially because she was late. I think that would have been even more depressing.
Yeah.
I'm really going to see her. And I'd be like, no.
But, I mean, the due date we were given actually ended up being very accurate.
Yes.
We're a few days late. But all the way through, we actually disagreed with it. Do you want to explain about...
Well, she was pretty big. And also, before that point...
So you'd been using an app to track when you thought you'd got pregnant.
Yeah, because they count from the last period.
Yeah.
But I knew because I was doing ovulation tests, my ovulation was basically just after my period. I knew she was about 3 weeks older than they thought she was.
I thought a lot of this stuff was like very fixed science, and it suddenly dawned on me all this, pregnancy stuff is so...
Pretty medieval, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just like, well, we'll just go from when your last period was. I'm like, but that's so like that could be a whole month ago.
Yeah,
like before, and then the length of pregnancy as well. I was like, oh, well, it's 9 months. I hadn't realised that even that is so variable and not a set science.
No, none of it is.
I mean, I feel like this is going back to a conversation in our last series where we had your sister Becky on to talk about France and UK differences, but one of the differences is that they have an extra week in their pregnancy.
Extra week.
Whatever, what do you call it?
I don't know,
gestation
period. So they let you go on for a week extra. In France, they would say before they'd intervene, because that's what they consider normal. Whereas in the UK, we're a week ahead of them.
We've been blown away by the number of people that have been listening along and been enjoying the podcast. So it's great. Thank you so much. But we would love it if you could leave us a review, a rating, follow us if you're listening on a podcasting platform, share with your friends, click like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, any of those things, click the buttons. All the buttons. They're just there. Go down, just scroll down a little bit and click it. Go on. It's very easy. That would really help us out and help us grow the podcast and reach other parents, which we'd love to do. Involve more people in the conversation, and it's free. We're not asking for money. You just have to click some buttons. Very easy.
True.
There you go. If you're watching along on YouTube, then you can also experience us doing a craft activity and showing something we've attempted. I think this episode we're doing a butterfly thing that you did.
Butterfly thing? Oh, yes. A butterfly thing. She's really into butterflies at the minute, so I decided I'd paint some butterflies.
Are you happy with it?
I am now. Halfway through, it took a turn and I didn't know what I was doing. I'd kind of gone too far with the background. I panicked. But in the end, I was fairly happy with the way it turned out.
As with most of our crafts, both of us always advise each other, just stop now.
Stop.
Don't do any more.
And the other person can't.
And we just keep going and keep making it sometimes it gets better, but often it gets worse.
It's it looked fine. Then I was like, what are you doing with the background? I was like, I feel like it needs colour. And then it was getting worse. And then I think I kind of saved it at the end.
There you go. Well, if you want to see that, pop over to YouTube. Or if you're watching on YouTube already, you can listen to us voice only on a podcasting platform. Either way, we're happy wherever you want to.
If you're watching the butterfly and you think this is terrible, go to Spotify. Don't you don't have to watch it.
Leave your comments and your thoughts. You can do that on YouTube or Instagram at don'twakethebaby_podcast. Or you can chat with other parents in our community, our Facebook group chat. So head on over there and you can chat with us and with other parents around Yorkshire and beyond. And that's great.
Yeah.
Right, so there's so much we can discuss with pregnancy. We've kind of gone into some of it. The other bits that I had that would be good to discuss are, the typical kind of physical effects and cravings and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So if we go back to the early phase of pregnancy, often a symptom of that is morning sickness.
Yeah, which is it should not be called morning sickness. It's all day.
That is a really good point.
All day
I had
sickness.
not thought of that.
Well, I think
just sick all the time.
Yeah, I had the preconception that it was just, and I've had sisters that are pregnant, that I thought it was just like worse in the morning. Like I thought there was a reason for the name. No, it's not really.
Yeah.
It's kind of all day.
I mean, we should say with all of this kind of stuff, with, you know, all the physical kind of things that come with pregnancy, all the, you know, pain and other bits, it's all very dependent on people's experiences. It's like very rarely the same.
Oh, yeah.
Like pretty much everyone we've spoken to has very different experiences.
True.
And some people don't experience morning sickness at all.
No?
And some people have it really bad. The whole pregnancy.
I didn't have it the whole pregnancy. I was quite lucky in that regard.
Yeah.
Like once we hit the second trimester, I was pretty fine.
Yeah.
But no, I was very miserable the first trimester. Because I couldn't even open the fridge. Like that would set me off.
Couldn't really go in the kitchen.
Couldn't really go in the kitchen.
It would make you feel queasy.
And sometimes watching other people eat. Like we were watching like Taskmaster, and they were doing like, you know, where they make Alex the most disgusting food and try and make him eat it.
Eating weird stuff on there.
And I remember being like, I can't watch this. Like, I'm going to throw up for him. In that somehow even that just triggered my thing to throw up. So yeah, I was pretty sickly.
Yeah, it was good when that dissipated. That was good.
I mean, my darling husband did find it funny.
A little bit. It is a little bit funny. Well, these things, when you're not going through them yourself, or even looking back in hindsight, I hope, some of it can be funny. It's like there's stories of, you know, from your sisters who had it slightly worse, of like still having to do things like walk to work, and you just have to throw up in a hedge as you walk along.
Yeah.
And it's just like, there you go. It's just life.
Just reality.
Life as being pregnant. Great.
Yeah, this is what I worry about, like, when we're next pregnant again. That I've then got a toddler that I have to go out and do stuff
worry
with.
us, doesn't it?
And I'll be like, oh, everyone's eating something. I have to go.
Yeah. Because we've had some people feed into us about pregnancy, like when you've got another one.
I think you do stay active for longer, is what most people have said, compared to the first time.
And like more tired because you've got to look after another kid as well.
Yeah, that's
all
true.
sorts of things. There you go. I'm not really looking forward to that. Even from my perspective, I suppose a lot of it happens to you, but I'm there in a supportive role.
And I think this time around you'll have a lot more work because you'll have a toddler.
And it felt like a lot of work last time. You know, because you couldn't go in the kitchen stuff. I did all the cooking and cleaning, and then when you got bigger, you couldn't physically do a lot of things.
No.
And it was during COVID, so like we wanted to protect you. So
he
was
the one that had to go out to shops. Be like the hunter gatherer.
Yeah.
Sent out because no one's allowed out.
Yeah. Physical kind of changes. Obviously, you're growing a big bump.
Yeah,
when you're
huge
pregnant,
bump.
But that comes with lots of medical stuff and things that.
Yeah. A lot of people have really bad backs. I didn't actually have that bad a back.
And like ankles and stuff are a big thing, aren't they?
Yeah,
with pregnant women.
And you've got to look out for like preeclampsia. So you've got to check if like your hands or your feet are swelling and all that jazz.
Yeah. It's coming back to me now.
Yeah.
I was forgetting. It's coming back to me. See, there was so much to learn about.
Yeah.
Like, you go through this whole phase, and I was just like, as well as preparing for the arrival of a baby, it's just like learning about, you know, there's a lot of messaging family being like, I've got this symptom today. Is that normal? Is that normal for pregnancy?
Is that something? Because this one, my sister Kirsty, she's the most recent one of our sisters to be pregnant, and she would just message me like, is this normal? And I'd be like, yeah. And I was like, that's what I was like. I'd just be like, this is a symptom I have. Is that normal? And everybody go, yes, that's normal. And go, great.
The problem with that is, like I said, because it seems to be different for like women all the time. So you might message and be like, is this normal? And everyone's like, none of us had that. But then it could still just be a normal pregnancy thing.
It's just lucky that I have so many sisters. Normally one of them has had it before.
That's a good point.
Yeah. When there's like 5 other people, you can go like, hey, did any one of you have this real weird thing? And they're like, yes, we did. You're like, good.
Yeah. You're like crowdsourcing like information. I'm sure it's kind of what some people use like Mumsnet or you know, social media or something for, to like try and be like, you know, I've got this problem. Can anyone help?
I think that's actually because a lot of time I was very aware that I was quite paranoid because it was my first baby, and I knew like, don't seem that big a deal, but I want someone to just go, yes, but also I have that problem.
It's different, isn't it? It's not like when you have a normal illness or something, or a symptom pops up, you're like, right, I'll go to the doctors, I'll consult, where it's like, well, you're pregnant, like you can't be going to
I can't go every week and go, hey, got another thing that doesn't really seem like a big problem, but it's like a weird ache in a certain place, and I want to know if that's right.
What things helped you get through the pregnancy, like with all those aches and pains and stuff? We had a pregnancy pillow.
I think that's pretty good, pregnancy pillow. I had one of those, like something to help support your bump. It went like under your bump, like a little belt thing. Pregnancy belt, is that what they call it? Maybe. That was quite helpful near the end, just because of how heavy it was.
Yeah, to support your back mainly, brace, and it also had a strap under your belly to help support.
It just helped when I was walking, it didn't feel as heavy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else really helped. I had a lot of pillows, like...
Yeah. I went on Amazon and ordered like a load more pillows.
That helped a lot.
And then the bed was just full of pillows.
It was.
There was like barely any room for me.
Yeah. Can't really say there was much space for Ellie at all.
And it's kind of a stressful time. We tried to make light of it when you go through it and have a bit of fun along the way. I remember you were known around the house as the Big Belly Beast.
Big Belly Beast. Because it got to the point like he couldn't get past me. So like I'd have to leave like the bathroom for him to get in the bathroom because I was just so big at that point. There's no way he could have got past me.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that's, again, really different, isn't it? Some people have really big bumps and some people have very little bumps.
Well, some people were like, oh, I barely showed. I was like, there was no one could doubt I was pregnant when I was pregnant. It was so big. No one would go, oh, I wonder if she's pregnant.
Yeah.
Like...
I mean, it was more because you're so petite anyway that it looked really drastic.
Did look drastic, yeah.
And you kind of didn't put a huge amount of weight on elsewhere, just on your
just
bump.
the bump, really. Which in some ways is quite lucky because
That's true.
Like bounced back, if people want to call it that, like fairly quickly. So I felt quite normal in some ways quite quickly again. Yeah. I
mean, one of the things was I had to try and not be too aware of a lot of the changes that were happening to your body, because as we said at the outset of this, I'm a bit kind of squeamish with details.
Yeah.
And so like when you were talking about how like your whole rib cage was expanding like to allow this thing to grow within you, I kind of was going, oh.
Yeah, I remember telling her and he looked at me like, why have you told me that? I was like, I thought it was interesting for you to know. And he looked at me like, I don't want to know. I was like, okay, that's all right then, yeah. I forgot like things that would freak him out a little bit.
Yeah. And it reminded me on the topic of names, your Big Belly Beast name. The other thing was like names as well for the baby. For most of our pregnancy, Lily was called Pop.
Yeah.
For us.
Pop.
As a kind of gender neutral, just entity name before she was a little human.
Yes. And before we knew what it was, she was a she or a he.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I used to often be like, oh, Pop's really hungry. What are we going to eat?
Yeah. So that's another whole area of thing is around when do you find out the gender and do you find out the gender?
Yeah, so this was a really interesting comment we had from our friend Vicky, because we asked her, she's now pregnant with her second, and she has a little girl who's 1 week younger than Lily. And we were like, what is the main difference? And they were not like us. The first time around, they did not care about the gender. They were like, it'll be a surprise, it'll be lovely. And she was like, this time around, because she has a toddler, she think it'll be a lot easier for the toddler to like take it in if they already know it's going to be a little sister or a little brother. And also she made the point she now has a ton of girls' clothes or like in her attic. So in some ways it kind of matters what they're going to do with those clothes. Which is fair. So she was saying like now they do want to know because it's for the good of their other child to kind of help them realise this is going to be a real thing.
Isn't it? Yeah. I mean, we were like the toddler the first time round. Yeah. We were like, well, it would help us to know and visualise what we're having.
I think also because I'll be honest, it was mainly because my sister Becky is desperate for a girl.
It's the catchphrase again. My sister Becky.
Desperate for a girl. And she kept saying she wanted to be mentally prepared if we had a girl because she was going to be very sad.
It's going to be so devastating that we'd have to tell her so she could prepare.
So I remember we came out of the scan, like the NHS scan, and they didn't know because it wasn't their fault. It was Lily's fault. She'd been wriggling around all over the place. They'd been trying to measure it. And like, so they'd done all the important things of measuring her. But obviously that was like the last bit. And the woman said, it could be a girl.
She just wasn't certain.
I remember Becky called me up straight after the scan and she was just like, what is it? And I was like, we don't know.
There's a possibility.
There's a possibility it could be a girl. We're not 100%. And I remember she was like, okay, I could take that. And I was like, but we can find out.
Yeah.
Like, and we were curious for ourselves. Then we went for a private scan and like they were really good. They did all the other checks for you while you're there. And we're like, oh, it's a girl. And we were like, wow. Okay, did not expect that. I think I literally went, wow.
Yeah.
Because we were so sure it was going to be a boy.
Yeah, so sure.
And then, like really, you said...
Not that we like, wanted, one or the other. We weren't set on that.
It was just I think...
we were so sure.
We were so sure because both my sisters had boys. We were like, oh, well, it'll probably be the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, we're completely wrong. Girl.
Again, very similar to genders, isn't it? Some people like to wait until
they see the baby.
Born and then be like, they see the gender and then they pick a name.
Yeah.
And some people like us are prepared and have...
I think this is like... We come across as very cynical. We're very scientific. We just do ovulation tests.
We're not
and
very
we do
emotional
the thing.
about it. It wasn't very special. It's just how the world works. We just did it. It'd be really fascinating to hear from people who like are the opposite to us.
Yeah.
Who find it a really magical kind of thing. I
think it is magical. I didn't say it wasn't special.
But we don't have that thing where we're like, oh well, we'll see the baby and then we'll just know.
No, I don't think I'm that kind of person though, because I like certainties in life.
Yeah.
I think that's also why we found out the gender. I don't do well with uncertainties.
It's a very good point.
But neither does Elliot.
No.
So I was like, we're picking a name and that's it. I think if I'd looked at the baby and gone, oh no, I really don't think they'd suit that. But I'll be honest, your baby does not look like what it'll look like as a toddler.
Yeah,
so
I've never quite understood that because they change so much. And what do you mean when like, oh, they don't look like this name? I'm like, what do they look like?
I know what you mean though. Like some people I see and I'm like, they look like the name they are.
But they wouldn't have looked like that as a baby.
No, it's true. It's true.
As we always say, you don't have to agree with us, and if you have different experiences or see things differently to us, that's great. We'd love to hear from you. We're just kind of sharing what happened with us, and we'd love to hear your stuff too. This project of ours is supported by and in partnership with the Kairos movement, which Emma and I are a part of. So it's a kind of framework of emotional and spiritual support to one another and to those around us wherever we are. We get a lot of value from being part of it and they support us with our podcast, and there's others who are like-minded people within it. We're not necessarily advocating that you come and be members of it necessarily, but maybe there's something for you to get from it, support you, or just continue enjoying being part of our podcast and parent community stuff and know that that's kind of where our values and groundings are within the Kairos movement and the Methodist Church. You can find out more about our partnership with Kairos on our website, www.kairosmovement.org.uk/Don't Wake the Baby. Normally, in the format of our show, we talk about like what's changed since we were young, like looking back to the 90s as kind of millennial parents and what things look like now. I'm not sure there's a huge amount we can talk about there because like it's pregnancy. We didn't go through it in the 90s.
Well, I mean, we were in it.
yeah. But I wonder if probably some of the main differences are a lot of what we've already been talking around, some of the cultural kind of accepted practices, the way we talk about it, the way
I think even clothing.
Yeah. Okay.
So like my mum made a big point. They're like all these celebrities that go around with like their pregnant bellies out, and she was like, in my day that was like unheard of. I think a lot about like infertility as well.
Yeah.
There's a huge community on TikTok of people who like show like, I think they're American, I don't know, of like taking
probably on
like
TikTok, isn't it?
taking like all these injections to try and help their fertility.
Okay.
And then you show like at the end they have a little scan picture surrounded by all these injections they've had to take that they've saved each one they've done. I think that's really cute.
Yeah.
there probably would have been groups if we weren't in COVID, because I remember like they gave me a leaflet. It'll be like, your local group will be on at this time, but obviously it wasn't. Because
that's a really good point. That's something we've not touched on at all, which is like those groups and things. But we didn't experience it at all because we're. And
some people went to like massage groups. This is massages you should do when people are in labour and stuff. Like we couldn't go to any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Although I'll be honest, I don't think a massage would have helped me.
I would have been fascinated by all of these things, really, just from the perspective of coming at this as a man and as a supportive husband. Obviously, much of pregnancy revolves around the woman.
Yeah.
But we go into it as a unit, as we have chosen to create this baby. We're journeying together through this. It'd be interesting to see how some of that support deals with in a modern age. Would I have been welcome at all of those pregnant mums groups? The other thing we've not touched on is like movement and stuff. There's all sorts of phases of pregnancy, isn't it, where it gets quite exciting, where you're like, can you feel them moving yet? Can you feel them kicking?
Moving's very exciting when you first feel like a kick and a little... At first, it didn't even feel like kicking. People said it felt like butterflies, and I'm like, I did not feel like butterflies. I think it was my mum was like, it feels like just a little butterfly moving about. I don't know if Lily was particularly violent, but I was like, no, it feels like someone's like squiggling around, like...
Punch to the gut.
Yeah, like pretty harsh. It wasn't like, there's a little thing in there.
And it was exciting for me because eventually I got to like see the little movements.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't...
Because you couldn't go to a lot of the scans.
Yeah.
This is what Vicky was saying. Sorry, this is back a bit. Our friend who was really nice, she wrote a big thing when we said, like, how is this pregnancy different from the last one? It was really nice. Her husband can now go to all the scans.
I know a lot of women talk about, like, people, like, touching their bumps.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, we didn't have
that
at all because
no.
we were in COVID. But, I mean, it seems weird to me.
Yeah.
Like, why would you do that? Don't do that.
Well, I also think even me as another woman, I wouldn't dream of touching somebody else. I'm going to be honest, even my sisters, right? My sister Laura, not Becky this time, for people who can't. My sister Laura, she had her eldest son Adam in her stomach, and I remember, I feel it, and I was like, I don't want to. Because I remember, like, she put my hand on her stomach and he kind of, like, went like a snake. Like, you could feel like and I was like, it's a bit weird. Okay, I don't want to touch it anymore. Near the end, it just got terrible.
It was just terrible.
It was. And I think my problem was, then after this, when people asked how my pregnancy was, I would just be like, terrible, which wasn't true. But because I was
nice, like talking back through this, hasn't it? Because you remember bits of like earlier on in the pregnancy that were actually quite fun and interesting.
I'd say, like when they first start moving and you're in that happy bit where you're no longer sick and you can actually move about, but you're not too big. That's quite nice.
You can travel okay.
Yeah. But near the end of my pregnancy, horrendous. So I started with this whole body rash. It turns out it's a sun allergy called polymorphic something.
Right. I mean, that was in kind of almost the last week, maybe, just before you gave birth. It kind of finally... but even before then, we found it really difficult.
Before then, I was just so big. And then I had one leg that got really swollen and you thought it could be a blood clot. Oh, that was horrendous. So I had to go in hospital and they had to like do a scan, but they couldn't find anything. And I remember they said, come in like 2 days or something and we'll look at it again. But this is when I had problems with the NHS. They didn't write down my leg measurement the first time. So then they were like, did you not make a note? I was like, no, because that wasn't my job to make a note of how big my leg was. Like, somebody was writing notes. Why don't you have those notes that they had? And then they were like, does it feel bigger? And I was like, I don't know. I'm not a medical expert.
It was just a lot of the symptoms, it like just got towards the end bad enough that and weird enough that you needed medical attention. But a lot of them were not resolved.
Well, I think they just didn't know what was wrong with me.
No, until you gave birth.
Yeah.
And then they all kind of went away.
Yeah.
The weirdness of pregnancy.
So I had that, and I think another week I'd like already, despite not giving birth yet, had like mastitis in one breast.
Yeah.
I had to go get medication for that.
Yeah.
Like it was 1 week where I was like, every day something was wrong. And I was like, I'm sick of it.
The last 3 weeks, we struggled because we thought Lily was going to be early and she was late. And then we had all these issues
ailments where
we were in and out of hospital quite a lot during the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they worried she was big, so I had to go in for a scan.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, she is big, but not that big. It'll be okay.
So that's our kind of lasting memory of pregnancy, was those last months, last 3 weeks that were really tough. Everyone would always be like, oh, you'll be missing this time once the baby's out. Like,
that's what I'm saying. At no point did I miss that time. Didn't matter how sleep deprived, how much worry I had about my child. I did not miss the last week of my pregnancy.
Yeah. Common kind of thing that we've not really touched on is struggling sleeping.
Yeah.
Heartburn, being woken up in the night. Oh,
heartburn was horrible.
Getting kicks in the night.
Yeah. And babies are more lively on the night.
Yeah.
Because in the daytime you move and your movement sends them often to sleep, and then they're awake on a night, so they're automatically on the wrong schedule before you even give birth. Mm-hmm. They're like, hey, nighttime's the fun time.
It makes me think that we're often painted a very different picture of pregnancy, aren't we? We're here to shine the realities, the light of reality on to parenthood.
Some people have lovely pregnancies.
Some people do. And they always talk about, you glowing.
Yeah.
Did you ever glow at any point?
I think I glowed for about maybe a week.
Oh, okay.
There's one thing where I have some pictures of me with my bump. Once again, second trimester, best time.
Love it. A week of glowing. Well, that's great. I'd love to hear from others. Did you glow? When did you glow? How long did you glow for?
Well, it's interesting. Vicky was saying once again, Vicky gave us great stuff this week. Was saying how her pregnancy walk has started earlier this time than last time. So the waddle.
Oh, the waddle.
The waddle a lot of pregnant people do.
Yes, pregnant women.
Pregnant women. You end up doing this little funny waddle because you just get quite heavy.
So heavy and unbalanced. Yeah.
So you have this funny little walk you do as you go along.
It's a lot of my job, wasn't it? It was keeping you upright.
Yeah.
Helping you get out the shower. And, navigate round things. You can't bend down and pick stuff up.
Down.
Had to get stuff off that
I remember I shouted to him
I've
dropped a fork. I can't pick it up. I'm just going to leave it here till you come back downstairs. I just want you to know there's a fork on the floor.
So one of the stories that's been sent in from one of our listeners who's currently pregnant with their second child has said they're thinking a lot about how will they be able to support their existing toddler and give her what she needs in 9 months once they have a second one, and how will they manage to do both at the same time, and about the guilt of having another baby and they won't get necessarily the same as what your first child had.
Yeah, that's fair.
And also highlighting something that I think I resonate a lot with, which is thinking about how could you love another little human as much as you love your first child? It feels so,
yeah. I remember Elliot's first thing when we were pregnant. It's how am I going to love this baby as much as I love you? And I was like, you just will.
How will my love split?
It's a natural thing. And
will it now be 50-50 love to each of these things?
He was just I can't understand it.
Yeah. Another one from another listener who sent us a message on Instagram, who has a young baby. This is a whole nother topic, but I get my maths is not good enough. She said that they're 80 days old.
2 months, 6 weeks, apparently.
The comment she shared with us was she was finding it very difficult in the early days, waking up every 2 to 3 hours to feed the baby at first, and that now it's a little better because she sleeps for kind of about 5 hours. But
that's really good.
Yeah. But it's just a challenge, isn't it? It's really difficult knowing when the baby cries, what they're wanting, because you feel like you've done everything, but they're still crying.
Yeah.
It's such a learning curve, isn't it?
It is.
And she was expressing to us how you just feels like whatever you do, it doesn't seem to feel you're making much progress. It's not good enough. Feeling very unconfident in what you're doing.
I think that's parent guilt.
Exactly, isn't it? It's
like Vicky was
reality.
saying, my next child won't have the same amount of time as this child, and everything like that. I think no matter what you do, you have parent guilt.
Yeah.
Because you want to be perfect at everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's tough.
And you
Parenting's
can't
hard.
be. No one can be perfect at everything.
Yeah.
And nobody knows what to do all the time.
You got to make sacrifices, compromise, do what you can.
Yeah.
Send us in your stories, thoughts. Doesn't have to be related to a topic. Can just be little. It could be a parenting achievement like we share, or it can be your thought.
Have you lost your child?
And we'll feature it on a future episode. But thanks for joining us here in the pillow fort, the blanket fort. I can't remember what I said at the top of the episode.
No, I can't remember what you said either. I was waiting for you to say.
The conversation doesn't end here. Keep chatting with us on social media. But until next time, you've been listening to Don't Wake the Baby. Shh. Sleep well. God bless.